C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Varavadikacharya Sutrata Sri Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaja Ki Jai. Ananti Koti Vaishnava Brinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Premsika Ho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyamakund Kun Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Nudwarka Dham Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Srimati Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Srimati Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Gaura Parimananda Haribo. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga Jai Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, third canto, seventh chapter, text number 4. Ashraksid Bhagavan Vishvam Guna Mayatma Mayaya Taya Samstapayati Etad Bhuya Pratyapidasyati Ashrakshid Bhagavans Vishvam Gunamayatma Mayaya Taya Samstapatatyetad Bhuya Pratyapidasyati Ashraksid Bhagavan Vishvam Gunamayatma Mayaya Taya Samstapayatyeta Bhuya Pratyapidasyati Ashraksid Bhagavan Vishvam Gunamayatma Mayaya Taya Samstapayatyeta Bhuya Pratyapidasyati. Gunamayatma Mayaya Taya Samstapayatyetad Bhuya Pratyapidasyati. Arakshit Bhagavan Vishvam Gunamayatma Mayaya Samstapayatyeta Raksit Bhagavan Vishvam Gunamayatma Mayaya Asraksid Bhagavan Vishvam Gunamayatma Mayaya Taya Samstapayat Yetad Guyapayapi Vaishnavis Ashraksid Bhagavan Vishvam Gunamayatma Mayaya Ashraksit, cause to create. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Vishvam, the universe. Gunamaya, endowed with three modes of material nature. Atma, self. Mayaya, by the potency. Taya, by her. Samstapayati, maintains. Etat, all these. Bhuyaha, then again. Pratyapidasyati, conversely dissolves also. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. By His self-sheltered potency of the three modes of material nature, the Lord has caused the creation of this universe. By her He maintains the creation and conversely dissolves it again and again. Purport. This cosmic universe is created by the Lord for those living entities who are carried away by the illusory thought of becoming one with Him by imitation. The three modes of material nature are for the further bewilderment of the conditioned souls. The conditioned living entity, bewildered by the illusory energy, considers himself a part of the material creation due to forgetfulness of his spiritual identity, and thus he becomes entangled in material activities, life after life. This material world is not for the purpose of the Lord Himself, but is for the conditioned souls who wanted to be controllers due to misuse of their God-gifted minute independence. Thus, the conditioned souls are subjected to repeated birth and death. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana-shalakaya Chakshu Vimlitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Panchakalpatrubhyasya Kripasindavedata Paritana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So this verse is very unique because it gives us a real... Yes, this verse is very unique because it speaks about the living entity and who the living entity actually is and what the living entity is overcome by. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Bhumir aponalo ba yukam mano buddhi evacha. He says that in this material world, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego, These are Krishna's separated material energies. And the living entity is apart from that. These are just the separate material energies of Krishna. So the living entities in this material world, this is the confusion. They actually think that they're the earth, the water, fire, air, ether, these material elements. So we understand just by the Vedic scriptures, Srila Prabhupada's teachings, that the material world is actually a very temporary manifestation of only one of Krishna's energies. Krishna has various energies, and this material creation is simply just one of them. And all the activities of the world are directed by the Vishnu expansions of Krishna. Mahavishnu, Gobardakashayi Vishnu, Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. All these different Purusha avatars, they're doing the activities of this material creation. And people who do not know the science of God assume that this material world is for their sense gratification. They assume assumptions. In conflict management, the big term, conflict management, I only know this because I was in a seminar and they were talking about conflict management. So, big conflict management, one of the biggest words that's creating the conflict is assume. Somebody assumes that somebody did something. Somebody assumes this is what it actually should be. So, the living entity in this material world assumes that this world is there for them, for their sense gratification. And we learn in conflict management that this assumption, this assuming of things, is the conflict. That's the problem. The problem is because people assume that this material world is meant for their sense gratification. And then everything goes after that. They assume so many things. I'm this body. Big assumption creates false ego. And from this, so many difficulties, so many problems are there. But they're not understanding that what they've assumed to be themselves is simply a separated energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is not really us. That is not you, that is not me. We're actually the spirit soul within this body. And this is the misunderstanding in the material world. So, from the very beginning, they're making assumptions who they are. And from that point on, it just becomes worse and worse. It doesn't actually get any better. Papa gave an example of the bird in the cage. So if you have a bird in the cage, and if you just go every day and just clean the cage, but you don't feed the bird will die. So this is the symptom. We're in a cage. The living entities within the cage is encaged within this particular body. If we only try to satisfy the outside of the body, meaning this particular bones and flesh, mind, intelligence, and ego are also part of that. So if that's all we're concerned with, then lots of difficulties. Some people don't like their body. They don't like their racial identity. They don't like certain things that's going on. So all these different things we see are going on in the world today. All this is going on by these assumptions of who they think they are. And it creates this unbelievable chaos. I don't want to talk about politics, but I'm sure all of you are aware, like I am, that right now in our society, there's so many things that are going on because of assumptions. I'm this body. And from that, so many demands. And we see people from an assumption, they'll kill each other. They'll start a world war. They'll just annihilate everything on that assumption. And so it kind of reminds me, another example Papa gives, two men arguing how a piece of paper got cut, by a knife or scissors. And so they couldn't agree. No, it was a knife. No, it was scissors. And then they get into a fight and they roll into the water. And as one of them is trying to drown the other one, he's saying, knife, no, scissors. And as he's drowning, he's going underwater and he's going like this. It's scissors, and he dies. So this is what's going on in society today because of assumptions. And it's very difficult to overcome them because not only are the assumptions there, but there's also the three modes of material nature. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmi savasha hankara vimudhavma kartam iti manyate. That the conditioned soul, yes, the spirit soul, the bewildered living entity, influenced by false ego. Yeah, this is false ego that you're looking at. All false ego. And because we're influenced by that, we think ourselves as the doer of our activities, which are actually carried out by the three modes of material nature. So not only do we make bad assumptions, but on top of that, as this purport is saying, that the living entity is overcome by the three modes of material nature. So materialistic persons, they have no knowledge that they're under the control of Krishna. They have no knowledge like that. They have no understanding. They just, if you even approach them and try to explain it, they absolutely cannot understand you. They'll think this is just simply some bogus thing you're talking. So, yes, this material energy is very, very powerful. And the material living entity living in this material world, or I shouldn't say material living entity, but the person who thinks is his body, they think they're in control. They actually think that everything is meant for their satisfaction or for their taking and for their use and for their sense gratification. And they'll fight for it. And they think that they should work for it too. I'm going to work hard. Don't be lazy. Work hard. Get in there and get it done. And get your sense gratification. And that's what your happiness will be. So, and everybody knows that we're not happy. There's no one happy. Who's happy? Well, as devotees, we should be happy. So I'm not going to say who's not happy or whatever, So, yes, no one's really happy in the material world. No one, especially those individuals who are on the bodily platform of life. Even as devotees, we struggle with this understanding. We struggle with it. Prabhu, what's the matter? You're not happy? So we struggle with that also. It's very difficult to get over the three modes of material nature, or to speak of the false ego. It's a challenge. So basically speaking, everything, as we're reading here, everything is, to one degree or another, it's a product of the spirit and matter. Those are the two things, spirit and matter. Those are the issues. And we should try to understand that the spirit is the field of creation. It's the spirit that creates, and that that spirit is what's maintaining this material body within the spirit. And then there, of course, there's a supreme spirit, Krishna. He's a supreme spirit. He's created all of this that we see here. But the point being is that the body, this material elements, they cannot produce spirit. But the spirit produces matter. So it's like a living entity who's just a minute little entity. They can create a big skyscraper. They can create huge bridges. A lot of fantastic things. But they cannot create the universe. They cannot do that. So who does? Who does create this? The living entity, the fragmental part, it can't do it. It's impossible. Barely you can build, barely I can hammer a nail. So who's building this? Who's the creator? It's the supreme spirit. That's Krishna, the supreme personality of Godhead. And we're just simply fragmental parts of Krishna. Teeny. When I say fragmental, I don't mean that we're cut. because it's described in the Bhagavad Gita that we are sanatan, we're eternal. We can't be moistened by water, we can't be cut. You can't kill the spirit soul. It's eternal. So when we say fragment, we mean just a part of Krishna. That's what we really are. And this little part of Krishna has a lot of potency. It can do a lot of things, but it can't create the universe. Mamaivam so jiva bhuta sanatana. Jiva bhuta sanatana, what is that? Manasha sindriyani prakriti, Stani karshati? Yeah, stani karshati. Karshati, struggling. That's the word, karshati. The living entity is struggling like anything in this material world. And because the living entity is conditioned by this eternal energy, by this external energy, they're struggling very hard with the senses. There's 6 senses of the body. So we're struggling with these senses every day, the nose, the eyes, the ears, the genital, the tongue. There's a struggle. It's a fight. Every day it's a fight. It can be something different. One day you're feeling really good, the next day you can't. You're struggling. The body's not feeling good. And at the same time, you have to deal with the mind. Because in that particular verse, it just also says the 6 senses, which includes the mind. That mind is the whip. That mind is what actually makes things go in this material world. And depending on where the mind is, if the mind is encompassed by mode of goodness, you're a gentle person, you're caring, you're benevolent, you're giving, you want to give, you want to help. The mode of goodness, you're austere. The mode of goodness. But then if you're in the mode of passion, Prabhupada gave this example I read. Prabhupada said that the mode of passion means troublesome. And I thought that was so appropriate because sometimes we see someone in a mode of passion. They're troublesome, aren't they? Yeah, they can be very troublesome, very difficult to deal with, very difficult to associate with. So this passion, and this passion, it was what makes the world go around. We see people are so passionate, and that creates so much trouble. You see, the atmosphere of the world is such that if somebody's or a country is very passionate, wanting things their particular way, and boom, a war can start. So this passion can be very destructive and very troublesome for sure. And then there's the mode of ignorance. If the mind is captivated by ignorance, then the living entity slides down into the animal kingdom. And practically speaking, you can sit here and in a given day, you can see a couple of people that are almost like that in the human form. They're walking here and you see them, they're living in the street and hardly they can speak coherently, have no desire to clean themselves. There's a mental condition, of course, but there's a reason for that. They're deeply entrenched in this mode of ignorance. And this mode of ignorance is very, very damaging because from that particular point, one just slides down into the hellish condition of material existence. Practically speaking, non-human, although they're in human body. I've seen some people come here with their dogs. You see people that are coming here on the block with their dog. That dog is in better shape than this human being. The dog is taken care of nicely. The master waits for it to pass stool and it picks it up after them like a good master. The dog's taken care of, eats good food. Sometimes they buy organic foodstuffs for a dog. And most humans can't even eat organic food. And they're supplying it to the animal. It's ignorance. It's deep ignorance. And then at the same time we see a human body and no one cares. Could care less. This is really the sadness. And this is also karsati. It's the struggle. The heart struggle for existence. And the mind is the chief whip that makes us work. So we see that the body that we have, it's somewhat of a gift. This body is a gift of the material energy, especially the human body, because the human body is a proper vehicle to surpass all these different modes of material nature. In other living bodies, it's not possible, only in this human body. So it's a gift. But, it's said that in Kali Yuga, people are manda. Those that are too much attached to the material body, they're manda. In the Bhagavatam it's described, prayena payusasavya kalavishna yuga. I'm having a problem this morning. Prayena payusasavya kalavishna yuga jana. Manda sumanda. Matayo, right? Yes, manda sumanda. Yes, in this age of Kali, the iron age of Kali Yuga, men have but short lives. They're misguided. They're unlucky. They're lazy. And above all, they're always disturbed. But what does this lazy mean? This lazy refers to spiritual life. They're not lazy for sense gratification. They're very in tune. They're inclined. They're passionate about that activity, but very lazy when it comes to development of spiritual life, spiritual consciousness. Very, very difficult. And there's so many people that want to tell us how to enjoy this life. How do you get more pleasure? Get more pleasure out of this material world. So we have yogis, we have yogis and people that are, into altruism, country, society, kinsmen, and they tell us, no, join our party. You join our party, you're going to be happy. You'll be satisfied. And we all think alike, we'll work together. So these things are there, but we should be very careful how and who and what we associate with, because all these particular activities, although they may appear to be very good, and you may even experience some happiness by joining that party, or get some real, a little bit of happiness out of it. But there was a nice thing that I read that Tadit, she sent me some quotes about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj. And he warns the devotee not to become attracted to these particular groups who proclaim they can give you pleasure, happiness, because everything that they offer is not eternal. It's temporary. It has everything to do with the earth, the matter, temporary. Everything that they have to offer. And they don't offer anything that's actually eternal. And he says it's, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj calls it supreme auspiciousness. They cannot offer anything of that nature. They can't offer anything eternal or the supreme auspiciousness. Everything that they offer is temporary. Although there may be some satisfaction, there may be a little bit of happiness, but a devotee should not be in any way attracted to that particular happiness, because that happiness is temporary, although you may experience it. But it doesn't have eternality to it. Neither does it have supreme auspiciousness. And that's what the Krishna conscious movement is about. To give us eternality and to give us supreme auspiciousness by associating with the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the Vedas, through chanting of the holy name. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, he says that we should reject these instructions from those yogis, the ascetics, the karmis, the materialists, Because those instructions are temporary. They're temporary. One will not feel satisfaction. The soul will not feel satisfaction. The body may feel some temporary relief, but the soul will not be satisfied. And that's really the purpose of the Krishna conscious movement, to satisfy the soul. If you're going to come to Krishna consciousness and think you're going to become a millionaire, let's set this straight right now. You're not. You're not. That's not what you come here for. You come here to perform austerity, sacrifice, service. This is the eternal, supreme auspiciousness of Krishna consciousness. And this is what the soul is longing for. And what we need to do is we need to speak more about Krishna. Maschita matkata prana bodhayantam parasparam katyanta samam nicham tushanti charamanti cha. Yes, we should converse with each other, enlighten each other in Krishna consciousness by talking about Krishna. And then we get out of this particular elements of earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. That's how you get rid of that. By maschita matkata prana bodhayantam parasparam, by discussing with Krishna conscious, Krishna kata, yes. And by that discussion, the soul will be satisfied, meaning you'll be satisfied. Just like when Tarit and I were talking about these quotes from Bhaktisiddhanta, immediately we were both ecstatic. We started laughing. We were happy. And it was amazing because I'm not sure how it worked, but I remember after reading this, I came into the temple room and Brigapati came up to me. He said, "Man, I'm just feeling really good today. I walked in the temple and I felt really good." And I thought, whoa, I was just thinking about that. Why do I feel so good? So we were both feeling good. And he said he was feeling good because the gates were up. And he could see Krishna clearly. But his happiness and my happiness were the same though, because it was not on the Bali platform life. It was the soul. The soul was happy. I was happy on that principle, and so was he, because he could see Krishna now. He was like ecstatic. Oh wow, that's beautiful. And I said, Jai. Didn't I say Jai? Because I felt the same thing. Because I just got done reading this amazing quotes by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj. So this is Krishna consciousness. Te sam satatam yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam yupayanti te. In the Bhagavatam is described that those who are constantly devoted to me in serving me with love, I give the understanding by which you can come to me. Krishna says that. This is what it's really about. This is the sum and substance of our existence in Krishna consciousness. And the more that we do that, the more that we are inclined towards that, the more satisfied we'll become. And just by that process, all those other things will just diminish on their own accord. They'll diminish. Slowly and slowly but surely, it'll go away. And you'll feel this more and more relief. Yes, relief from the pangs of this material world. What's that next verse? Te sam evanukam partam aham agyana jamtama nasam nasayam yatma bhavasto jnana dipena basvataha. Krishna says, I dwelling in their hearts. He dwells in our hearts. And because he wants us to become pure and Krishna conscious, Krishna says, I destroy this, with shining lamp of knowledge, I destroy the darkness of ignorance. The darkness of ignorance. That ignorance is thinking that we're this body, that we're these elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. This is the darkness of this material existence. So if we absorb ourselves in these activities of Krishna consciousness, then we can overcome what Prabhupada says, the conditioned souls are subjected to repeated birth and death. Yes, this is the formula to get out of this birth and death cycle, this repeated birth and death. Okay, thank you very much for tolerating me. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.